Each layer of clothing on Victoria's body was removed. Old Hunter's lips quietly and gently touched every corner of Victoria, making her shiver. His hand gently placed on Victoria's hand. The feeling of her smooth skin flashed by, making him sigh involuntarily. He could no longer suppress the desire in his heart. The desire from that night until now had not been relieved. Hello everyone, welcome to our channel, where we will bring you the most interesting and dramatic stories in life. It will take the audience from one surprise to another. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any episodes. If you love Jane, you can go to the playlist to find Jane's other channels. In today's video, we will bring to you the story, The Life of Victoria and Her Old Neighbour. Please watch. Hearing the pounding of rice at night, Old Hunter jumped out of bed. He guessed that Victoria would still be awake at this hour, so he crept to the fence and looked towards her house. Seeing Victoria bending over and pounding the heavy pestle, Old Hunter said, "What are you doing at this hour, Victoria? Aren't you letting the neighbours rest?" "Hello, Mr. Hunter. I'm bothering you. I'll hurry up a bit. Tomorrow morning I have to go to the district to work. Please be patient a little longer. I'm almost done." "I was just teasing. I know your situation," said Old Hunter, suddenly jumping over the hibiscus hedge to Victoria's house. The whole house was dark. Only an oil lamp in the corner of the kitchen provided light for Victoria to work. He walked towards her and continued, "You work so hard. I told you to find a man to depend on. It's so hard for a woman to be alone like this." "Oh, you startled me. You came to my house to play all night. Why don't you rest?" Victoria calmed down and continued, "I also want someone to keep me company during this difficult time, but I'm so ugly. Who would want me? Besides, my child is still young, and my husband just passed away, so I don't dare think about getting married, Uncle." "You just say that. If you have any intention, the neighbourhood is full of guys asking about me and you." "No, I just want to stay single. If I get married now, and your child and mine are born, it would be a shame for my son," Victoria replied, standing in the corner of the yard. Old Hunter deliberately walked towards the mortar where Victoria was pounding rice. He sat opposite her, making Victoria feel shy. It was evening and there was no one around, so she was only wearing a pink blouse and a pair of worn-out brown pants. Seeing the old neighbour's eyes staring at her, Victoria raised her hand to cover her chest to reduce his attention. "You're so good. You work for hire during the day and work at night. You know how to do everything. If you don't know how to do it, you have to practice. If I don't do it, no one will help me. It's late. Go home and sleep. I'm almost done." Old Hunter's greedy gaze scared Victoria. His bearded face was no different from the old goats in the neighbourhood. He came to other people's houses at night so naturally, without any intention of making her worry. If it weren't for the fact that they lived next door, Victoria would have chased him away. "I'll go home when you're done. I can't sleep now," Old Hunter replied. "Okay, you go out and let me help." "No, Uncle, I don't want to bother you. Just let me do it. It's not that hard. I'm almost done," Victoria replied, her face showing a bit of fear. Old Hunter was still looking at her hungrily. His eyes seemed to want to devour her. Victoria knew very well what Old Hunter was here for. Since her husband died, he had often come over, using all sorts of excuses to gossip. Many times Victoria didn't bother to meet him, but because they were neighbours, she had to endure it. If he had been polite, she wouldn't have said anything, but he was always flirting around, which made Victoria very uncomfortable. He was almost 46 years old, a whole generation older than Victoria, but because he kept calling himself brother, Victoria had to listen. Unfortunately, this area was sparsely populated, with only Victoria and Old Hunter's household in the middle of the field. His wife had left a few years ago because she couldn't stand his patriarchal nature. and their children worked for some powerful landlords in the neighbouring commune. He was struggling to make a living as a carpenter, and he was considered wealthy. Victoria didn't like him, but because they lived near each other, and in case of any trouble in the future, they would need someone to come over to help, she didn't dare to offend him. Victoria herself knew what he wanted from her. Just looking at his perverted face was enough to understand. Seeing that the mother was too much of an orphan, he kept coming. In the dark night, without any light except the oil lamp, old Hunter's eyes became more and more frightening. He just sat silently, watching Victoria work, his mind full of calculations. After a moment of silence, he asked unconsciously, "You must be lonely living alone like this, right?" Victoria stood still for a moment, then slowly replied, "What's so lonely about it, Uncle? With just the two of us, we just work and eat. What's the big deal? It's a pity to lack a man, but it's not everything, Uncle." But the women in the neighbourhood above, a few years after their husbands died, compete to get new husbands. People want someone to accompany them in life, to encourage and comfort each other. That's why they get married. Everyone has their own style, but I'm not like that. And I thought all women were like that, couldn't stand without a man, he said, his eyes never leaving Victoria. "You keep saying that. My husband has been dead for years. I'm still single. What's wrong with that? Everyone has their own personality, but you should go home. It's late at night. I don't think it's convenient for you to sit here. I'm all alone. You're a man. Sitting here talking like this is not appropriate." She gently dismissed him again. "I saw the lady and wanted to help her. I didn't mean to be so rude. Neighbours help each other in times of need," old Hunter said, full of provocation. Victoria replied with a serious face, "I feel uncomfortable here." "You look even more unnatural dressed like this." "I'm still decent. If it was another guy, he would have jumped on you," old Hunter said, his eyes never leaving Victoria. Victoria jumped up from the mortar, ran to the bathroom, grabbed her aodai and put it on. "I'm home alone. That's why I'm dressed like this. Who would have thought you were coming over to visit? I'm not an easy person, so don't misunderstand. I'm done. You can go home. I'm going to rest too," Victoria said firmly. Seeing Victoria's unpleasant attitude, old Hunter was very resentful. Every time she came to visit Victoria, he would find an excuse to send him home. If she were his wife, he would have beaten her up, but this was the neighbour girl he dreamed of day and night, so he tried to be gentle to win her over. In his mind, he wanted to possess Victoria at all costs. If he could not touch Victoria's body, he would not be at ease. It would not be right to say that Victoria was beautiful, but it would not be right to say that she was ugly. People often say, "A girl is a sight for sore eyes." Victoria's face was not pretty, but her figure was enviable. She looked beautiful in everything, from torn clothes to coarse fabric, all of which accentuated her plump, smooth body and flawless white skin. Even though she was a country girl with muddy hands and feet, Victoria's legs were always smooth. If Victoria were a flirtatious person, the village boys would have swarmed her house, but Victoria always acted cold and indifferent, so all the men only dared to look at her longingly in their thoughts. Old Hunter was different. He was more infatuated with Victoria than any other man. Abandoned by his wife, he craved that closeness. Seeing Victoria's loneliness, he couldn't help but have dark thoughts. This situation was not reasonable, so he changed to another. Seducing and teasing didn't work, so he turned to flattery. Victoria often went to the district to work and only came home late at night. Her son was sometimes sent to his grandmother, sometimes to his aunt, and Victoria's house was always locked. Old Hunter often came to help her close the door, fix the chicken coop, reinforced the fence in the corner of the garden, and found all kinds of excuses to go to Victoria's house. When Victoria came home from work, he quickly went over to tell her about his achievements. He was so eager that whenever he had something delicious, he would stalk Victoria when she came home from work and bring it over. Today was the same. He butchered a big chicken and brought half of it to Victoria. Seeing Victoria struggling to cook rice, he jumped over and said, "Are you cooking rice, Victoria? Have you eaten anything yet?" "Yes, I just cooked it now. I just got home from work and there's nothing at home. I just cooked some dried fish to get through the day." "You're suffering like this. Here, I'll give you half a chicken. I can't finish it, so I'll cut it in half for you and your mother. I boiled it, so you can cut it up and eat it. The chicken is delicious." "Oh no, Uncle, please leave it for me to eat. I won't accept it. This lady is interesting. I only give it to her because I like her. You're too polite. But I gave it to your child, not to you, so why would you accept it? Your doing this makes me feel awkward. Really, I used to find you easy to live with, but I feel embarrassed when you're like this. When I'm not home, you come over to help me with this and that. I don't like it. I have nothing to give you, nothing to repay you, but you keep doing it. I don't dare accept it." Hearing that, he felt very happy. It had been a long time since he had heard a sweet word from his neighbour. He proudly raised his beard as if Victoria had fallen for him. "Then just accept my kindness. What do you have to repay me for? It's just that I don't want you to be alone and suffer alone. If you loved me, you would have everything, not just eating dried fish like this. What can I do to repay you? My fate is too bad. My husband is gone. I have no food to eat. How can I take care of you?" The old man glanced at Victoria with lustful eyes. "You have so much to give me. You just don't know it. I don't lack material things. I only lack love." Realizing his crude and affectionate words, Victoria became more tense. "What do you mean? Just say it straight. I don't like beating around the bush. Why are you jumping around like that? I just like and admire you." He put the plate of chicken on the bamboo bed at the kitchen door and walked straight to the fence. Victoria felt a little uncomfortable, so she said to the old man, "Don't even think about bribing me. I know your good intentions. I'm not that kind of person, so don't even dream about it." Victoria was about to return the chicken dish to him when her son smelled the boiled chicken and ran out. Victoria was so happy and excited when she saw it that her eyes widened as she looked at the chicken. It had been half a year since she had had a piece of chicken in her mouth. Her mouth was watering and Victoria started to cry. Victoria felt so sorry for her son that she had to accept the chicken dish to ease her son's sadness. She consoled herself that she would pay him back double in the future. Receiving that plate of chicken made old Hunter more hopeful. Even though Victoria had said it so bluntly, he still had the intention of taking possession of Victoria. Many times his desire arose. He even wanted to jump over to Victoria's house to kill her. But then he controlled himself. It was really tiring to live next door to an old pervert. Whenever he heard a noise at Victoria's house, he would sneak out to the fence to peek at his dream girl, especially when Victoria took a bath in the afternoon. Whenever he saw Victoria go to the clothesline to get her clothes, he knew that Victoria had gone to take a bath. Because they were poor, Victoria's bathroom was not very good. It was called a bathroom, but it was actually just a few pieces of torn bamboo. Whenever he heard the sound of water splashing, he would climb up to the roof to look over. Today, the old man was more daring. Just as Victoria was about to take a bath, he sneaked out behind the house. He sat quietly at the banana tree opposite her bathing area. Victoria didn't think that someone would be watching her while she was bathing. She continued bathing naturally like every day. Victoria's smooth white body made old Hunter tremble violently, his eyes wide open and unblinking as he looked at Victoria. The large holes that were open were enough for old Hunter to see Victoria's entire body. While she was unconsciously wandering in front of Victoria's full beauty, he turned around, making a noise. Instinctively, Victoria turned around and saw a black head looming in the distance. "Who is it? Who is that at the banana tree?" Victoria shrank back, quickly pulled up her pants, and huddled in a corner. Seeing that she was being watched, old Hunter quickly ran home, still not forgetting Victoria's figure. She quickly got dressed and stood in the yard, looking panicked. At first, Victoria couldn't figure out who it was, but when she calmed down, she was sure that the person stalking her was none other than Mr. Hunter. In this area, there were only her family and him, and only 2 households, so if it wasn't him, then who could it be? Victoria began to worry. She felt uneasy in her own home, but she couldn't do anything. Without evidence, how could she dare to go and curse him? In the end, she had no choice but to endure the humiliation. Victoria switched to bathing at night, no longer daring to bathe in the afternoon like she usually did. As for Mr. Hunter, he was filled with enthusiasm when he saw all of Victoria's full beauty. That image kept appearing in his mind. Every night he dreamed and imagined Victoria. He imagined exploring and touching her beautiful body. Because of that image, he liked it more and dared to take more risks. He had been away from his wife for so long that his needs were rising, and he felt like he could no longer control himself. Victoria was still in a state of fear and wariness towards her neighbour. Victoria knew very well how lustful and eager he was. Victoria believed that if given the chance, he could invade her at any time. However, Victoria's judgment was correct. It would happen sooner or later. It was a stormy night in mid-August. The strong wind blew off the roof of Victoria's house, and the rain continued to pour down. The house was dilapidated, so Victoria had to send her son to her aunt's house to avoid the storm, where the house was more solid. Victoria had to stay at home to look after the house and deal with any unexpected incidents. Victoria's bed corner was covered with pots and pans to catch water, and the leaky roof left her with no place to lie down. The flickering oil lamp was not bright enough, and the strong winds blew straight into the house, and one side of the door fell off. Victoria sat neatly in the corner of the bed by the window, looking helplessly and shamefully towards the courtyard, when a dark figure ran straight into the house. Victoria was startled and shouted, "Who is it? Who is it? Why did you run in here?" The old man staggered, looking around for Victoria's location, his mouth reeking of alcohol. "This is Hunter. What is this girl doing screaming like that? Oh my God, what are you doing at my house? You appeared like a ghost. You must have called from afar. It's raining so hard that I can't hear you." "I came to see if your house was okay. Do you need any help? It's too dangerous for you to stay in this dilapidated house during a storm like this. Come to my house and take shelter from the storm." "I'm fine. I can take care of myself. I'm so scared that you showed up on a stormy night like this. I'm all alone. You should have been more considerate. If things continue like this, I won't be happy. I have good intentions, but you sent me away. Why?" The old man walked towards the oil lamp and turned on another lamp he had just brought over. Now there was enough light to look around. Victoria was even more startled when she saw that the old man was only wearing thin shorts, and they were also wet, which made Victoria even more nervous and scared. She had lived here for so many years, but Victoria had never seen him come to her house dressed like this. When did Victoria ever think to herself, could it be that he took advantage of the storm to come here and play tricks on her? Victoria stood up and walked towards the door, taking the initiative. Old Hunter kept shining the lamp towards Victoria. Unfortunately, Victoria was also completely wet from running out to get something to catch the rainwater. Victoria's entire body was clearly visible, Every position was clearly visible, making Old Hunter even more excited. Victoria was so scared that she said, "I'm fine. You should go home. It's not convenient for you to stay here. My sister is a widow, and it's difficult for you to have male and female neighbours like this." "What did I do that you're shaking like that? I can't bear to leave you here alone. Either you come to my house to sleep, or I'll sleep here. If anything happens, I can help." No, I don't need it. You can go home. Don't scare me. I can take care of myself. I have such good intentions, but you keep sending me away. This girl is really good. I'll say it again. Go home. Don't let me report you. Don't think I don't know your intentions. Old Hunter ignored Victoria's words. He pulled the first chair and sat down. "I'm not going home. I'll stay here and watch you tonight." "What's wrong with you? I told you I don't need you. Stop being so shameless. Other people's homes are like your own. Don't bully them all by yourself." Even though Victoria spoke bluntly and harshly, Mr. Hunter didn't pay any attention. He just sat there with his head tilted up, looking at Victoria, his eyes boring into her wet body. "Go home. I've said everything. Don't make me angry. I'll scream now." It seemed like he couldn't control himself anymore. He stood up and walked towards Victoria. "You just scream. You can scream until morning and no one will hear. I see you're beautiful, you're lovable, so I'll come protect you. Why are you so grumpy and treating me like an enemy?" As he spoke, he reached out to touch Victoria's butt, his eyes greedily looking at her. "Oh my God, what are you doing?" "I didn't expect you to do that. Stop it, don't be so reckless. Get out there." "If I notice you, you should like me. Why do you keep pretending like that? If you don't have anyone to warm your eyes, let me help you." "Get out of my house. I'm not some kind of slut you can do whatever you want with. You're too much." "Come here. I lack a woman's breath. You lack a man's breath. Let's help each other overcome loneliness. Why do you have to make such a big deal out of it?" Victoria struggled and ran to the corner of the house, grabbed the door latch and threatened the old man. "If you continue to act recklessly, I will fight you to the death." He laughed loudly and smugly. "A woman like you can only serve men in bed. You can't do anything to threaten me." "Come here. You haven't slept with a man for years. Looking at your face, I know you're craving it." Victoria screamed, her hands still holding the door latch tightly. "Shut up! I'm not like you. I used to think you were a good person, but today your evil side is revealed." "Come here and indulge me. Do you know how much I like you? I fell in love with you when you came here as my daughter-in-law. Seeing you bathing made me want to jump on you. If I didn't have you today, I wouldn't want to live anymore. You're so evil. It turns out you've been spying on me all this time. There are so many women out there that you're always eyeing me, Mr. Hunter. Go away." At this moment, he and she were less than a meter apart. He deliberately stood close to Victoria. "Because you're beautiful. Only you can make me feel this way. Do you know that I dream about you every night? I just wish I could sleep with you once, and that would be enough." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed in and locked Victoria tightly. How could a weak girl resist a strong and lustful man? Victoria tried to struggle but could not escape. Old Hunter kept pressing Victoria's body against his toned body. The more Victoria struggled, the more excited he became. Victoria was so helpless that she burst into tears. "I beg you, please spare me. Don't do this to me. I beg you." Old Hunter growled and looked straight at Victoria. "What do you have to lose by pleasing me? If I attack you, you will be happy and not afraid. Just do your job. You will be both pleased and relieved. What do you have to lose?" "I beg you, don't do this to me. If you do this, I won't be able to live. After all, we are neighbours. How could you treat me like this?" "No more talking. Just please me for one night. If you please me, I will come over tomorrow to help you fix up your house and give you a pair of breeding chickens. "You're crazy. I don't need those things. Please leave me alone." After being coaxed for so long, Mr. Hunter took the initiative to push Victoria down to the floor. He used all his strength to push Victoria down. Victoria tried to struggle, but could not do anything to him. He was too big and strong, and now he was in a state of lust. So how could she escape from him? After writhing for a few minutes, Victoria was exhausted. Her cries had weakened. Her hands no longer had the strength to push him away. Victoria could only lie still, helplessly, for that inhuman man to do whatever he wanted. She was exhausted. "Do whatever you want to me. Do it. Hurry up. Why do I have a neighbour like you?" "Calm down. I didn't take anything valuable from you. I'm helping you. Wouldn't it have been better if you had spoiled me earlier?" A helpless, lifeless face appeared on Victoria's face. She turned her head to the side. Tears began to spread down her cheeks. Her hands were spread out to the sides. Victoria didn't bother to resist anymore, because she knew she couldn't defeat this old man. Victoria's life could not have imagined that one day she would be tricked by her neighbour. Victoria's life was too miserable. Her husband died. Now she was raising her child, but was also being watched by this evil man. Seeing Victoria lying still, the old man began to take off all of Victoria's clothes. Victoria's entire white, plump body appeared before his eyes. Victoria lay alone in the middle of the house on a mattress, her entire body placed straight on the wet, dirty ground. Then the old man buried his head in and enjoyed the delicious dish he had dreamed of for so long. The old man's face showed a beastly, satisfied expression. Outside, the wind and rain were still blowing continuously, and inside the house, it was a truly sad scene for a widowed, helpless woman. Old Hunter was excited in his passion. He was tormenting Victoria. It wasn't that Victoria enjoyed it, but Victoria was afraid. She was afraid that if she didn't comply, he would go crazy, and if he did, she didn't know what would happen. Right now, Victoria only thought about her son. Even though she might be hurt and humiliated, Victoria would never let her son suffer or be unhappy for anything. Despite Victoria's sincere pleas, the old man didn't care. He only stopped when he felt satisfied with his beastly nature. The old man sat leaning against the grain box, gasping for breath, as if he was about to die, unable to speak. Victoria grimaced, trying to crawl towards the wet clothes on the floor and put them on. She leaned her head against the wall in a daze. She never thought her life would be like this. Victoria's face was cold as she said, "Are you satisfied? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Now get out of my house and never appear before me again. I'm not even your neighbour. Get out of my house now." Old Hunter turned to look at Victoria with a satisfied and smug expression. One actively went out to find a man. The other had someone come to her house to serve her, but didn't know how to appreciate her. "If you weren't this delicious, I wouldn't even want you. You should rest. I'm going home. I don't want this to get out. I don't want the world or my son to know that I was once tricked by a bad guy. This is the first and last time. If you let it get out, you'll be done for." He turned to look at Victoria with contempt. "Just know that if you were good, you would have everything. If you were thoughtful, no one would let you. Don't worry, I wouldn't be foolish enough to let outsiders know," he said, and went straight out to the yard, through the rain, climbed over the fence, and left happily. Victoria was exhausted and miserable. Victoria didn't understand why she was so helpless. The old man was right. She had lost nothing. But why was she so miserable? She couldn't cry anymore. It seemed like hatred was forcing her. Victoria was not a flirt. She didn't crave that. She just needed peace to take care of her children. But on this fateful evening, Victoria was tricked by her despicable neighbour. Victoria tried to move towards the bed, looking for a place to lie down, and then she fell asleep without realising it. The next morning, the storm passed, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Because she was so tired from last night's events, Victoria woke up at 8 o'clock this morning. Her face was tired. She struggled to get up in a daze. The haunting memories of last night still appeared on her face. She looked around. Her house was like a battlefield. One corner had the roof blown off. The kitchen door flew out the door. But what was even more unsightly was the image of old Hunter diligently repairing those items. Victoria panicked and said, "Why are you still here? Why are you so shameless, Mr. Hunter? I didn't ask you to help me." "Go home! I'm not a bargain!" Regardless of Victoria's words, Mr. Hunter still diligently repaired the damage caused by the storm. "You still have the nerve to come to my house? Do you know how humiliated I was? Do you know how you tortured me last night? I was so scared when I saw your face. I was so haunted. Do you know that?" Victoria held onto the door and said to the yard, but Mr. Hunter didn't pay any attention. It seemed that Victoria was too tired. She talked for a while but didn't receive a response from him, so Victoria left the house. She walked across the field to her aunt's house to pick up her son. When she got home, everything was fixed. The roof was rethatched. The door was fixed. The fallen bushes from last night were cleared away. Victoria didn't know whether to be happy or sad, to blame herself or to be grateful. A few days passed and everything became quiet. Victoria also did not see him appear at her house anymore. Victoria secretly thought that he must have understood his mistake, so he did not bother her and her mother's life anymore. She secretly felt happy. But no, that was only when he had not yet gotten angry. Then everything went back to normal. After a few days, he came over again, got drunk, and started to cause trouble, and then tried to do something reckless again. It's only been a few days since we last saw each other, but Victoria looks so different. Why do I get so excited every time I see Victoria? What are you doing in my house again? Are you crazy? Please let my mother and I live. Why do you keep torturing me and my mother like this? I didn't do anything to you. I just came to check on you. Weren't you excited that time? I'm always by your side. You need me when I need you. I miss you again today, so I came to visit you. Go home. Don't think everyone is as bad as you. I won't let a bad person like you touch me again in my life. You bad guy. Victoria got up and went straight into the house to take her son out. She wouldn't let that happen again. She took the little boy to her grandmother's house to avoid him. Knowing that she couldn't avoid him forever, and couldn't stay in a house that was always full of worries and tension, Victoria decided to leave this house. A landlord hired her to rent a corner of the house for her and her son to stay. From then on, Victoria's life became peaceful again. Although she couldn't live in her own house, she was more comfortable, not always worried about someone coming to disturb her, because she knew that his nature would never change. Victoria had escaped from a bad, lustful man. In her life, she couldn't imagine being so unfortunate, not even being able to live in the house her husband left for her children. She always thought that only when that old neighbour was no longer around would she dare to return to her house. It seemed like it would be a long time before that would come true, but 3 years after that fateful day, Victoria heard that old Hunter had caught a cold and passed away. That news broke her out. She didn't know why she was so happy. She should have been sad because her neighbour was gone, but no, Victoria was very happy because that old man was the thorn, the hatred of Victoria's life. If he died, Victoria would be able to return to her hometown, to live in her own house. 2.0 Flash Experimental might not work as expected. When old Hunter was buried, it was also the day Victoria brought her son home. Sitting in front of the house, many memories came flooding back, perhaps more sad than happy. In front of Victoria's house, the image was still haunted. Old Hunter was coming, but then everything was in the past. She and her mother had a new peaceful life, no more fear. Hopefully, The image of a perverted man would never be now appears in Victoria's life. Ladies and gentlemen, our story will stop here. Hopefully, it has brought you the most interesting and wonderful emotions. If you find this story interesting, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment about your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next interesting stories. Now, Jane would like to say goodbye and see you again in the next videos. Wish you a wonderful day.